Hello and good afternoon. We're going to, first of all, let's say hello. It's been a while. It's been several weeks since we had a new podcast episode come out. My name is Ray Hazlip, and welcome to another episode of Games Analysis and Producer Perspectives. Today, we are going to go on a little bit of a ramble. It is going to talk about what is in the name. That name is Metroidvanias. And why do we call them Metroidvanias? And is there a better name that we can call them? First things first, let's get this out of the way. We're going to get our quick sponsor break out of the way, then we'll move on to the actual content. So give it a couple seconds. Be right back. Do you like drinking coffee? Of course you do. You're listening to this podcast. That's pretty much most people listening to this love drinking coffee. What you want to drink, though, is locally sourced and sustainable coffee. How about some coffee where every time you make a purchase of it, 5% of all of its sales go back to charities to go ahead preserve the great outdoors? How about a coffee that only works with local farmers? Coffee that gives you a great taste. So thanks to today's sponsor, that is going to be Afuera Coffee. You can go to afueracoffee.com and you can order some specially sourced, single sourced actually, sourced from the Rainforest Alliance Farms in Central and South America, coffee beans, ground or whole beans, and get that delivered straight to your house. You want to use my promo code RHAZE, that's RHAZE, at afueracoffee.com. Order yourself some coffee and they're going to give you 15% off just for using that promo code. Go ahead, get yourself some coffee, and enjoy it knowing that you're giving a little bit back to the environment. Okay, and we're back. So, Metroid, the very first video game called Metroid, the one that came out for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1986, that game is built around you playing as Samus Aran, walking around the planet, traipsing about, and finding power-ups to go ahead and defeat the ultimate evil on that planet, the Mother Brain. And it's fine. It's good. I've played the first one. Played it a long time ago. It has not stood the test of time. It has a remake called Metroid Zero Mission. If you're ever going to play the first Metroid game, play that one. Now, in 1997, there was a new type of Castlevania game called Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This is a game where you play as Alucard, the son of Dracula, and you're going through the entirety of his castle to go ahead and defeat the ultimate evil, Dracula. You have to go ahead and get to the main chamber. Now, obviously, if you haven't played Castlevania Symphony of the Night, well, there's a little bit of a thing. You get to the first top of the castle, and you don't actually fight Dracula. You fight Richter. It's a whole thing. The castle turns upside down. You have to find a bunch of items to go fight actual Dracula. Takes a long time. Like, I don't know, 4 hours if you know what you're doing. Most people will take 8-12 hours on their very first playthrough. Whatever. It's paced out a lot like a Metroid game. The original intent of this game was supposed to be a 2D version of a Zelda game, but it ended up doing a lot of different things that made it feel and play a lot like a Metroid game. And so, because we already had several different Metroid games that came out, including Metroid 2, Samus Returns, and of course, Super Metroid in 1993. And now we have Castlevania Symphony of the Night in 1997. The gaming community decided, all of these games play in a very similar type of way. They are action-adventure games that require you to find specific items to progress. In the Symphony of the Night game, you have to find a double jump, you have to find the flight boots, you have to find the mist power-up, the spike breaker armor, blah blah blah. Obviously in Metroid you have to find the Varia suit, the screw attack. You don't have to find the screw attack, you'll just be given it to you eventually. The ice beam, so on and so forth. Missiles, ball power up, morph ball. Once you have a game where it's built around you finding a bunch of power-ups in order to progress, And it is a non-linear style game, a adventure game, if you will, an action adventure game where you are tested based on your button commands and how you fight different bosses. You will have to defeat certain bosses. People said, okay, these games are extremely similar. We will call them Metroidvanias, in combination of the Metroid game and Castlevania game, specifically Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So this has worked. This has worked for, it's 2026 right now. This has worked for almost 30 years. We've been calling them this. Now, in the last several years, there has been a little bit of ire for this naming convention. I've read specifically game articles, I've read hot takes from YouTubers of people that just don't like the name Metroidvania. And I'll tell you why after we take one more break right here, right now. So you know what I like? I like energy drinks. I take them every time right before I work out. And what I don't like about energy drinks is when you do take them, you do have a caffeine crash right after them. And so I'm always shopping around for different energy drinks that will give me a better caffeine high, as it were. Maybe a more natural high. So we got today's sponsor, Aspire Drinks. If you want to go to aspiredrinks.com, what they give you is healthy energy that delivers balanced, crash-free 80 milligrams of natural green tea caffeine. They are sugar-free, and they come in a variety of delicious flavors. They will keep you refreshed and focused all day long. Now, as a new sponsor of this show, they are giving an exclusive discount when you are at the checkout. Enter the promo code RHAZE, and it's like Ray Hayes. Yeah, RHAZE at aspire.com when you order some energy drinks. You could just buy a pack for yourself or just make a subscription if you've already had them before. Once again, these are gluten-free, keto-friendly, soy-free, vegan, and kosher natural energy drinks. The discount is going to give you, the listener, a 20% discount. That's a heck of a deal. Go ahead and put that into, once again, aspiredrinks.com. That's RHAZE. You're already going to probably go buy some energy drinks. Why not buy a bulk? Buy some in bulk. Tell them Ray Hazlip sent you. All right? Okay, we are back. So the thing about a Metroidvania game that makes it sort of different from other video games is that your progression is locked behind a bunch of different barriers, and also your progression is the game spaces in a 2D plane, typically maybe 2.5D. If it's a 3D game and it's Metroidvania style, most people just call that an action adventure game. I can't explain to you why that shift happens that way, but that just is the way it is. There's something about being locked into that 2D plane that you can't it kind of seals the deal on how that game is supposed to be played. There are different ways you could do it inside of a 3D space, and some games have kind of successfully done it. Obviously, Metroid Prime, as an example of a game that has done it very well with several different games. But neither here nor there. I do want to get into the very specifics of Symphony of the Night and why the Vania part of it is very important. Because in Metroid games, the amount of power or the amount of damage that you can do to an enemy is fixed. This one enemy that you're fighting, we'll just say a horn toad, it's going to take X number of shots from your power beam. We'll say it takes 5 shots. I'm just throwing a number out there. If you get the wave beam, maybe it'll take 1 wave beam shot. If you get the ice beam, it'll take 1 ice beam shot plus, I don't know, several other power beam shots. Add a number here. We'll say 3. In Castlevania Symphony of the Night, though, it has RPG-like elements where you can level up. And games that imitate Symphony of the Night will add level up mechanics. They'll actually add different weapons to the game. They'll add different items to power up your character that aren't intrinsic to the character that you can equip on and off at will. Different armor, different boots, different gloves, maybe helmets, whatever. You play it like literally a role-playing game, an RPG. There are not necessarily speed runs, but challenge runs of Symphony of the Night where people pick the worst weapon in the game, which is the Red Rust sword, where the sword does not work sometimes. It is programmed so that every couple of button presses, it does a check to see if the sword actually comes out of its scabbard and hits the enemy. Sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes the Red Rust will poison an enemy. Sometimes it'll poison you. It just depends. I think it self-poisons. I don't know. It's been a minute since I touched the game. But people can do that. You don't have that option in Metroid. Your power beam is going to do a fixed amount. You can find different versions of that beam and equip or de-equip them, but you will do a fixed amount of damage to the enemy. If you want to be extremely cheeky, you can stay at the very beginning area of Symphony of the Night, and you can grind by just hitting the same enemies again and again and again until you get to level 99. And by the time you fight your first boss, you can hit him as opposed to, I don't know, the 20 hits he would normally take. You hit him once and he explodes because you've sat there like a weirdo and you've just powered up the entire time using the RPG mechanics. That's cool. Not every sort of, pretty much zero Metroid games have that, but Castlevania style versions of the Metroidvania genre do have that. That's a very important detail. The level up mechanics. So, why do people not want to use this terminology anymore? Well, it's very simple. Not that many people play Metroid games. Metroid games are pretty popular in the West. Most people know what a Samus is. Not as many people play them as you might think. Not as many people will play a Metroid game as have played a Mario game. How many people have actually played Castlevania Symphony of the Night? Well, as I get older, I can tell you right now, it's fewer and fewer and fewer people. I can't tell you what the very last Castlevania-style Metroidvania game that came out that was done by Konami, the owners of Castlevania. I think it was Order of Ecclesia back in, oh my gosh, was that 2008, 2009? For the Nintendo DS? I think that was actually the last one. It's been a long time. And obviously Konami isn't in the business of publishing a lot of different video games. They published Metal Gear Solid Tri recently, and that's great. That's cool. But they kind of don't care about the Castlevania formula. There is Bloodstain, that series, which is being done by Koji Igarashi. The last Bloodstain game that came out, I think it was 2018, 2019, and that's absolutely Castlevania Symphony of the Night in all but name. And that is a Metroidvania style game. It is a Castlevania Symphony of the Night style game. Same level up mechanics. A lot of different power-ups are very similar. Enemies are locked behind doors. But it's not a Castlevania game. So when you call it a Metroidvania and you say this is basically Castlevania, you're correct in all but name. So now the question becomes, do we keep acknowledging Castlevania style games as a specific subgenre of the action-adventure genre if no more of that specific style of action-adventure games come out? It's kind of a somewhat dead series, unfortunately. I don't like that Castlevania hasn't come out in a long time. The remakes, not remakes, basically collective packages. The DS collective packages, the Advanced Collection, Castlevania Advanced Collection has come out, and I did buy it. I have it sitting around here somewhere. I played Aria of Sorrow on my Nintendo Switch recently, last year, on it. So those games are available for purchase, but there haven't been new ones. There's still Metroid games coming out. I just recently played Metroid Prime 4, oh my gosh, it really was a month and a half ago. And I played a couple years ago Metroid Dread, which is the most Metroid-ass Metroid game you're ever going to play. Does that count? Do we just call them Metroid-style games from now on? Well, no, not at all. I have read that people want to go ahead and change it to a new name, and I've read some of these names, like Unlocking World, Pathfinder, search action. And one person I heard suggest say maze action. I kind of like maze action, I'm not gonna lie. Why hasn't this taken off though? What's the difference? What are we holding back? Let's go back to the actual subgenre again. In the Castlevania style version of Metroidvania games, depending on the sort of paths that you take, depending on the unlocks that you do, there are multiple different endings in the game. I do believe Symphony of the Night has about 4 or 5 different endings in the game, depending on what you do. Metroid games all have one ending, but they all have different sorts of post-credit sequences based on how many items you've collected, how fast you've beaten the game. Always those two factors. But Symphony of the Night, there are specific actions that you could take. There are specific bosses that you have to beat to go get a completely different ending that sometimes can beat the game and you've beaten it very early. Some Metroidvania style games are in the Castlevania subgenre. You can get halfway through the entire game and it rolls credits and you're like, oh, was that it? Is it done? Okay. But you're not done, you just didn't do everything. It's different. It's difficult to kind of describe. Let's go back to the actual naming convention. Back in the 90s, it was extremely popular to call all first-person shooters Doom clones because 1993's Doom completely changed the world when it came to how we perceive video games. Nothing like Doom had ever existed. Doom is an extremely complex game and is still to this day one of the most popular first-person shooters. We actually did come up with a brand new name for that specific style of game, that specific style of first-person shooter that Doom is. Doom, Duke Nukem, etc. They're called boomer shooters because typically the people that played them in their teens or in their adult life, well, they are part of the baby boomer generation. They're like, hey, these games are great. Also, there's a lot of explosions in them, and using rocket jumps in those games is not only expected, but respected. And they look kind of archaic. Typically, they use voxel art or pixel art or 2D art, stuff like that. Doom Clone was successfully replaced, and it was replaced inside of about, I want to say, 10 years. We stopped calling them Doom clones before Halo came out. I do not remember anyone calling. Let's take this for example. Doom came out in 1993. Half-Life came out. The first Half-Life game came out in 1997. Gosh, I sort of miss when technology would just jump and move that fast. I don't know if we're ever going to see that again. I think we've hit peak gaming technology, but can you imagine that? Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked going from Doom 1993 to Half-Life in 1997, and then going from Half-Life 1997 to Half-Life 2, and I do believe it was 2007, was that 2007, 2004? I forget which one. It was less than 10 years or something like that. But yeah, fantastic shifts in gaming. It was 2004, my fault. It was 2004. Fantastic shifts in gaming. Just huge leaps, bounds, and jumps. And we stopped calling them Doom clones because even for the few years that it was called that, it was just kind of a dumb name to roll with. So why hasn't Metroidvania been taken off for a different name? I mean, there are some people that do unironically call Metroidvania search actions. I have met these humans. They exist. I've never met anyone call them unlocking worlds. I've only seen one YouTuber call them pathfinders, and that's a shame. I've never seen anyone call them maze actions. Apparently, the original box for Metroid in Japan, when they gave a little classification to what type of game it was that you were going to buy for the Famicom system, they called Metroid, for their genre, they called it a action maze game. And I think that's cool. I think that's fun. But I don't think that's going to take off as a name. I don't know what the best name is. And that subgenre, keeping that exact same name for 30 years, we might be actually in kind of a scenario where that name just sticks and it stays and there's nothing we can do about it. And that's weird, isn't it? Isn't that weird that we aren't willing to shift to a different name? Like, everyone's tried it, but I don't know. It's going to take a Herculean effort to get the name Metroidvania supplanted. I'll give you another example. Dark Souls. Dark Souls came out Xbox 360 in 2013. And the very specific way that those games plays in that you have a bonfire where you can go hit and rest, and it resets the world, it resets the enemies, you have a level up system, it's very RPG focused, you have block, dodge, and parry mechanics. There's a lot of different games that use these mechanics, including FromSoft's own games that use a lot of these mechanics. The world has adopted a new term for these style of games, like Jedi Fallen Order, obviously Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and we've all collectively called them Souls-likes, as in they are like the Souls-type games. Demon Souls being the very first game to try to do this, and I don't love Demon Souls, but Dark Souls just did it so much better. So, because there's Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne is slotted into the Dark Souls series, even though it's not a Dark Souls game. It's made by the same company, From Software, and it has all of the same trappings of Dark Souls. Sekiro is considered a Dark Souls style game. It has all the same trappings of Dark Souls, except you can jump, and also there is you can go ahead and have a lot of vertical movement. You have a grappling hook also in that game. But you also can reset enemies and paths when you rest at a specific location. So, Elden Ring being the latest example, by the way. It doesn't say Dark Souls in the title, but everyone looks at Elden Ring and says, yeah, you could just passively call this Dark Souls 4. Some people do. That's fine. I'm not going to stop you. So are we going to ever come up with a better name for another action-adventure genre besides Souls-like? As well as Metroidvania? I don't know. It's been over 10 years, and normally these name changes take about 10 years to form into a solidified new name. Like, we stopped calling them Mario clones, we call them platformer games. We in the community of people that make and play video games, we come up with a better name, typically within a couple years, but Souls-like and Metroidvania seem to just stick. And I don't think anyone's in a rush to change that because, one, let's just get this out of the way. Metroidvania sounds cool. Souls-like sounds cool. Search action doesn't sound cool. It just simply doesn't. Is it a more accurate description of the game? Yes. Yes, it is. You are searching for how to get through in the game, and it's an action-based game. It doesn't sound as cool, though. Absolutely. I don't know. I'm still kind of a fan of maze action or action maze. I think that sounds really kind of cool. But that's me. I'm very biased when it comes to the naming conventions here. I don't know what the actual answer is. I think it's interesting. I think it's a very interesting problem. Are we going to go ahead and take another step back? We used to call different sorts of RPGs, role-playing games that were specifically made in Japan and they were turn-based. We would call them JRPGs, as in Japanese RPGs. It was informed during an interview, I think it was in Famitsu, or some other Western, it might not have been an Eastern, it might have been a Western video game publication, noted to the creator of, I do believe it was Final Fantasy 16, like, this is not a traditional, because Final Fantasy 16 is straight up like a Devil May Cry game, which is its own different genre. Well, we won't get into that. The interviewer said, this game does not play like a JRPG. And the team looked very confused. They asked, what is a JRPG? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine talking to a Japanese video game developer and having to explain what a JRPG is? Because that's not a term they ever use over there. That's fascinating to me. So it was explained to them like, oh, well, it's a turn-based RPG made from Japan and has very specific mechanics to it. And they said, oh, we don't call it that. And someone noted, well, what do you call them? And they said, just RPGs. It's like, oh, interesting. Well, what we tried to do is we tried to differentiate Western RPGs from Japanese RPGs. And they were again aghast. They said that doesn't make sense to us because an RPG, a role-playing game, is a role-playing game, whether it's turn-based or not. And that is once again, fascinating way to go ahead and look at gaming. They don't have a mental subgenre to that. A turn-based RPG is just another RPG, regardless of where it came from, or regardless of how it plays. Now, of course, most people that don't want to call them JRPGs, they just call them turn-based RPGs. That's it. You take turns. The enemy has their turn. It plays like a giant chess game. It's cool. My sisters used to make fun of me for playing turn-based RPGs all the time. They say, why are you playing a video game where people take turns hitting each other? And I would kind of mouth off to my sisters like, and this is why you suck at chess. They all suck at chess. Because you can't understand the concept of a game where people take turns. It has to be action all the time. And granted, there are a lot more people like my sisters than there are people like me. The concept of turn-based RPGs is kind of a slowly dying genre. It's becoming more of a niche audience type of thing, even though at the time, when it came out, it was the largest audience type of thing. Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy X, just to name a couple off the top of the dome. Very easy to name, obviously. So again, what do we do to kind of loose the world from the concept of the name Metroidvania? I don't know, and I don't think there's anything that we're going to do. I have tried to incorporate search action into my lexicon, and every single time when I try, I slip back into Metroidvania, and then I keep saying that for like the next several months, and then someone reminds me that search action as a term exists, and I'm like, oh yeah, completely forgot about that. I'll try again later. Going forward, I'm still going to say Metroidvania. I'm just stuck with that. I love Metroid games. I have pretty much all of them except Metroid Federation Force. I did order that one. That's coming in the mail. I'll see what happens with that. As for Souls-like, I am begging the world to come up with a better name than Souls-like, but I'm also going to not lose any sleep if it never happens. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the different names. Leave a comment if you're watching the YouTube video, or if you are listening to the podcast. I'd love to go ahead and read any of your emails about that. Please send them over to unscriptedgamecast@gmail.com. I will read it. Or give me your comments on Blue Sky. Just follow us on Unscripted Gaming at Blue Sky. Anyways, thanks very much for hearing my little naming convention ramble. Hope to hear from you again in some way, and I'll talk to you next time. Have a good one. Have a good week. Take care of yourselves. Bye.